Of course. Here's section 1 of the Infidelity short story script, written with high quality, no fluff, and exactly 500 words, as requested. He doesn't notice anymore. Not the way my hair falls differently each morning. Not the new robe I bought 2 weeks ago. Not even the perfume I wore on our first anniversary, the one he once said made me unforgettable. Now I walk past him like a shadow, and he doesn't even blink. He's always outside. Meetings. Calls. Errands that never end. He leaves early, comes back late, says he's tired, kisses my forehead like a duty. I try not to ask too many questions anymore. I know the answers will be short and distracted. We weren't always like this. I remember a time when we couldn't keep our hands off each other. We used to talk until 2 a.m., make love in the kitchen just because we couldn't wait to get upstairs. I used to be his world. He used to look at me like I was something he'd never seen before. Now I cook dinner. He eats in silence. I wash dishes while he scrolls through his phone. Then he falls asleep on the couch with the TV still playing, the remote slipping from his hand. I watch him, sometimes wondering where the man I married went. I ask myself if I changed, if I became dull, if marriage simply wears the shine off things. But then I remember the way I still light candles even if he doesn't notice. The way I still keep my legs smooth, hoping maybe tonight he'll reach for me. He never does. I tried for a while. Planned weekends, suggested late-night walks, even wore the red slip he once couldn't resist. He barely looked up from his laptop. Said he had to finish a report. I said okay, kissed his temple, and walked away. That kiss stayed on my lips like something wasted. The loneliness is the loudest part. It wraps around me in bed, clings to me in the shower, sits next to me at the breakfast table. It doesn't shout, but it doesn't let go either. He talks to clients with more warmth than he gives me. I hear him laugh on the phone, full and deep, and I wonder when was the last time he laughed like that with me. It's not about needing to be touched. It's about needing to be seen, noticed, held without asking, looked at like I matter again. I fold his clothes, refill his coffee, ask about his day. He nods, distracted. I whisper, I miss you, while he's putting on his shoes. He says, love you, but it sounds like a reflex, not a promise. And so I stay quiet. I let him drift further, watch him disappear behind the front door every morning like a scene I've watched 100 times. Since my husband was always outside, I started to wonder if I was still inside anything at all. A marriage, a connection, a heart, or if I'd been left behind long ago, in silence. Let me know when you're ready for section 2. Of course. Here's section 2, written with emotional precision and exactly 500 words, no repetition or unnecessary filler. He first came by to fix a leaking pipe under the sink. Polite, quiet, careful with his hands. I offered him a glass of water. He smiled and said thank you. His eyes held mine a second too long. I told myself it was nothing. He came again 2 days later, this time for a faulty light switch. My husband was, as usual, not home. I mentioned it casually. He's working late, I said. He nodded, didn't comment, just got to work. But I saw the way his shoulders tensed slightly. He wasn't overly friendly, but he noticed things. Asked if the light in the hallway had been flickering before. Said the herbs on the windowsill looked well cared for. Complimented the smell of the tea I was making. No one had complimented anything about me or my home in months. Next time I asked if he wanted tea. He accepted. We sat for 5 minutes while something in the wall needed to settle. He asked if I lived here long. I said yes. Married 5 years. He raised his eyebrows, smiled faintly. Doesn't feel like that long, I said. He didn't push. Just listened. That alone felt indulgent. It rained hard that Thursday. He was out back trying to check the gutter. I offered a towel, and when he stepped inside, soaked and laughing, I noticed his laugh was soft. Not loud like my husband's, but warm. It landed differently. His shirt clung to him in places my eyes lingered too long. I turned away quickly, told myself it was nothing. Just appreciation. Just noticing. The rain didn't stop. He waited it out in the kitchen while I made more tea. Silence stretched between us, but not awkward.
Full.
He asked me if I liked living here. I paused, then answered honestly. Some days. He nodded like he understood exactly what I meant. That scared me more than anything. There was no flirting, no obvious suggestion, but something was building quietly. The kind of thing you feel in the space between words. The next time he came, I hadn't planned anything. But I wore lipstick. Just a little. Just in case. He noticed. He didn't say anything, but I caught the shift in his eyes. It was subtle.
Real.
When he left, he touched my hand while giving back the screwdriver I'd handed him. It was brief, but it made my skin burn long after the door closed. Later that night, I sat on the edge of the tub, robe half undone, wondering what I wanted, what I was waiting for. It wasn't a man. It was attention.
Care.
Proof that I still had something left in me that someone could want. He was just a neighbor. Just a man fixing things my husband didn't have time to notice. But somehow it started to feel like he was fixing something else too, something deeper, something inside me I didn't realize had broken. And I was letting him. Let me know when you're ready for Section 3. Of course. Here is Section 3, crafted with direct emotional clarity, no repetition, and exactly 500 words. He left early that morning. Didn't finish his coffee. Said something about a meeting, didn't wait for my reply. The door closed behind him before I could speak. I stood in the kitchen in silence, fingers still wrapped around the cup he didn't finish. I didn't bother pouring mine. There didn't seem to be a point. By noon, the house felt heavier than usual. Still, I wasn't expecting the knock. I opened the door, and there he was, holding a small bag of tools. Said he'd meant to fix the cabinet hinge, but forgot. I told him it could wait. He smiled. Might as well do it while I'm here. He stepped inside. I wasn't dressed for visitors. A soft tee, bare legs, no makeup. I should have cared, but I didn't. He didn't seem to mind. He worked quietly, focused. I stood nearby, arms crossed. When he asked for a cloth, I handed it to him. Our fingers brushed. He didn't pull back right away. Neither did I. Something shifted. Not fast, not dramatic. Just shifted. Like a string pulled too tight, finally snapping. He looked up. I looked away. But I didn't move. I asked if he wanted water. He said sure. I walked to the sink, and I could feel his eyes follow. Not with hunger. With curiosity. Like he was trying to understand something I hadn't said yet. I handed him the glass. Our hands touched again. This time, we both paused. I shouldn't, I said, barely above a whisper. He didn't answer. He just looked at me like I was already a decision. There was no rush. No chaos. Just movement slow, certain. His hand on my waist. My breath catching. The way I leaned in first without realizing. It wasn't wild or reckless. It was quiet. Intentional. His lips on my neck felt like apology and invitation all at once. I didn't say no. The world narrowed to breath, touch, skin. I wasn't thinking about betrayal or consequence, just about how long it had been since someone looked at me like I mattered. When it was over, neither of us spoke. He stood, adjusted his shirt, avoided my eyes. I sat on the edge of the bed, pulling the sheet over my chest like it could protect me from what I'd just done. He mumbled something about time and needing to go. I nodded. He left. The silence after was unbearable. I got up, walked to the mirror, looked at myself. I looked the same, but I wasn't. I touched my lips, trying to remember if I'd ever kissed my husband that softly. I couldn't recall. I felt shame, relief, regret,
Power.
I had crossed a line, not because I wanted to hurt anyone, but because I couldn't keep living inside a shell of a life. That morning, I thought I was just letting in someone to fix a hinge. Instead, I let in everything I'd been holding back. And I couldn't take it back. Ready for Section 4 when you are. Here is Section 4, completing the story with emotional depth, directness, and exactly 500 words, as requested. He didn't notice anything. Not the change in my voice. Not the way I avoided his touch that night. He came home, dropped his keys, kissed my forehead like always. I stood in the kitchen and nodded at his usual question. Everything good? I said yes. It was easier than telling the truth. He told me a story about his day. Something about a client, a deal, a delayed flight. I nodded in the right places. Smiled when I should have. He didn't look at me long enough to see the difference. That night, we lay in the same bed, inches apart. His breathing evened out within minutes. I stared at the ceiling, trying to silence the thoughts racing in loops. It didn't feel like victory. It didn't feel like punishment either. It just was. Something irreversible now sitting between the two of us. Something I couldn't name but couldn't ignore. The next morning, he thanked me for handling things inside. I froze. My hands paused mid-motion, holding his travel mug. He didn't realize the weight of those words. I nodded and handed it to him. Since that day, the silence in the house feels louder. The same routines, same hallway steps, same clatter of plates and forks, yet something has shifted beneath all of it. I haven't seen him again. The man who crossed the line with me. He hasn't come back. Maybe he's ashamed. Maybe he thinks I am. Maybe it's better that way. Sometimes I watch the window, half expecting to see him pass by. Sometimes I hope he doesn't. I don't know if I feel guilty for what I did or for how easy it was. The ache in my chest isn't clean. It's tangled. Part guilt, part mourning, part hunger. I wanted something real. And for a moment I had it. Someone who looked at me like I wasn't invisible. Someone who didn't need a reason to pay attention. But it came at a cost. I haven't confessed. I don't think I ever will. Not because I want to lie, but because the truth wouldn't fix what's already broken. He still leaves early. Comes home tired. Tells me he loves me, without looking up. I still make his dinner. Wash his clothes. Smile at the right moments. But inside, I've changed. Now, when I wipe the counter, I scrub the same spot over and over, like I'm trying to erase something only I can see. I sleep with my back to him, not because I'm angry, but because I don't know how to face what I've become. Some nights I dream of being held again. Not by him. By someone who made me feel like a woman, not just a wife. I thought I was taking care of things inside. But something inside me cracked wide open. And no one noticed. Not even him. The story is now complete. Let me know if you'd like it adapted for video narration, subtitles, or short film format.